It was 11:30 p.m. on a rainy Thursday night in Chicago, when Katt Williams stepped out of his limousine onto the sidewalk outside the Chicago theater. He had just finished his third sold-out show in 2 days, and the adrenaline was still pumping through his veins. The crowd had been electric, laughing at every punchline, giving him standing ovations that lasted minutes. "Great show tonight, Mr. Williams," his driver Marcus said as he held the car door open. "You heading straight back to the hotel?" "Nah, I need to walk for a bit, clear my head. Meet me at Navy Pier in about an hour." Marcus looked concerned. "Sir, it's pretty late, and this isn't the best neighborhood. I'll be fine. I grew up on streets worse than this." As the limousine pulled away, Katt pulled his hood up against the Chicago drizzle and started walking. The streets were mostly empty except for the occasional car and the distant sound of music spilling out from late-night bars. This was his ritual after big shows, walking alone through whatever city he was in, processing the performance and coming back down to earth. 3 blocks from the theater, he passed an alley and heard a voice. "Excuse me, young brother." Katt turned to see an elderly black man, maybe 65 years old, sitting against a brick wall under a small overhang that barely protected him from the rain. He was wearing layers of worn clothing and had a weathered face that spoke of years of hard living, but his eyes were sharp and alert. "You got $1 to spare?" the man asked. "I ain't eaten since yesterday morning." Katt reached into his wallet and pulled out a $20 bill. "Here you go, old-timer." The man looked at the 20 with surprise. "This is too much, son. I only asked for $1. Keep it. Get yourself something good to eat." But instead of taking the money and moving on, the old man studied Katt's face carefully. "Wait a minute, you're that comedian, ain't you?" "Katt Williams?" "Yeah, that's me. Just came from the theater. How'd you know?" The man smiled. "I was sitting outside during your show. Could hear the laughter through the walls. Sounded like you made a lot of people happy tonight." Katt was struck by something in the man's tone. "What's your name?" "Samuel. Samuel Washington. But folks call me Sam." "Well, Sam, how long you been out here?" "On these streets? About 8 years now. But I wasn't always like this." Sam shifted his position and winced, favoring his right leg. "Used to be a high school history teacher. Taught for 32 years at Marshall High School on the South Side." Katt felt a chill that had nothing to do with the Chicago weather. "What happened?" Sam's eyes grew distant. "My wife died of cancer. Medical bills wiped out everything we had saved. Lost the house 6 months later. Then I had a stroke. Mild one, but enough to affect my speech and my memory sometimes. School district had to let me go." "Didn't you have family, friends?" "Pride's a funny thing, son. When you spent your whole life being the one people come to for help, it's hard to ask for it yourself. By the time I swallowed my pride, I'd been out here so long that people assumed I was just another addict or drunk." Sam shook his head. "Truth is, I never touched drugs in my life, and I haven't had a drink since night." Katt sat down on the wet concrete next to Sam, ignoring the fact that his expensive clothes were getting soaked. "Sam, you said you taught history?" "Yes, sir. Loved every minute of. Used to tell my students that history isn't just about memorizing dates and names. It's about understanding that every person has a story, and every story matters." "What was your favorite thing to teach?" Sam's eyes lit up despite their circumstances. "The Harlem Renaissance. I loved showing those kids that their ancestors weren't just slaves and victims. They were artists, writers, musicians, philosophers, people who changed the world with their minds and their creativity." As Sam talked, Katt began to see the teacher he had once. Despite the worn clothes and the difficult circumstances, there was an intelligence and dignity about him that couldn't be hidden. "Sam, can I ask you something?" "Course. Do you ever feel angry about how things turned out?" Sam was quiet for a long moment. "You know, I was angry for the first couple years. Angry at God, angry at the system, angry at myself. But anger is like a hot coal. You can't hold on to it without getting burned. So what changed? I started paying attention to people, really paying attention. You'd be surprised how many folks walk past a homeless person every day without even seeing them. But every once in a while someone stops. Someone like you just did. I just gave you $20, Sam. That's not much. Son, you sat down next to me on wet concrete in expensive clothes and asked my name. You asked about my life like it mattered. That's worth more than money. Katt felt something shift inside him. Sam, what do you need? Really need? Honestly, I need to feel useful again. I need to feel like my life still has purpose. What do you mean? Sam pointed to a group of teenagers hanging out under a street lamp about half a block away. See those kids? They're out here every night, dropping out of school, getting into trouble, heading down a path that leads nowhere good. I try to talk to them sometimes, but they just see a crazy homeless man. But you see potential students. Exactly. I see kids who need someone to believe in them, someone to show them that education is their way out, just like it was for me once upon a time. Katt stared at Sam for a long moment. Sam, what if I told you I wanted to help you get back on your feet? I'd say you're a good man, but I don't need charity. I'm not talking about charity. I'm talking about a job. Sam looked confused. What kind of job? I'm starting an educational foundation. I need someone who understands teaching, someone who knows what it's like to struggle, someone who can connect with kids who feel like the world has given up on them. Mr. Williams, Katt, just Katt. Katt, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but look at me. I'm homeless. I haven't taught in years. My speech isn't what it used to be since the stroke. Sam, let me tell you what I see when I look at you. I see a man who taught for 32 years because he loved it. I see someone who faced the worst life could throw at him and didn't turn to drugs or alcohol. I see a teacher who still cares about kids he doesn't even know. Katt pulled out his phone. I'm going to make some calls. We're getting you into a hotel tonight, and tomorrow we're going to start rebuilding your life. Why would you do this for a stranger? Because you're not a stranger, Sam. You're a teacher, and teachers change the world. The next morning, Katt met Sam at a downtown hotel where he'd booked him a room. Sam had showered, shaved, and was wearing new clothes that Katt had sent up to his room. How do you feel? Katt asked. Like a human being again, Sam replied, his voice thick with emotion. Over breakfast, they talked about Katt's vision for the foundation. I want to create programs for kids who feel forgotten. Katt explained, kids from backgrounds like mine, like yours, kids who need someone to show them that their story doesn't have to end the way it started. What would you need me to do? Be yourself. Be a teacher. Help me design programs that actually work, not just programs that sound good on paper. 6 months later, the Samuel Washington Education Initiative had opened its first learning center in Chicago. Sam, now the program director, was working with 30 at-risk teenagers, teaching them not just academic subjects, but life skills and self-respect. Sam, one of his students, a 16-year-old named Jalen, said after class one day, "How come you understand us so good?" Sam smiled. Because I know what it feels like when the world counts you out. But more than that, I know what it feels like to find your way back. The real test came 8 months after they'd met. Katt was back in Chicago for another show, and he stopped by the learning center unannounced. What he found took his breath away. Sam was in the middle of teaching a history lesson about the Great Migration. But he wasn't just lecturing. He was telling stories, connecting the past to the present, making the kids see themselves in the broader sweep of American history. See what your great-grandparents understood, Sam was saying, is that education isn't just about getting a better job. It's about changing your family's story forever. After the class, Sam and Katt walked through the neighborhood where they'd first met. You know, Sam said, I used to think that ending up on these streets was the worst thing that ever happened to me. What do you think now? Now I think maybe it was the best thing, because it taught me something I couldn't learn in 32 years of teaching. What's that? That everyone has something to offer, no matter where they are in life. Those kids don't just need me to teach them. They teach me every day about resilience, about hope, about not giving up. They stopped at the exact spot where they'd first met. Sam, can I ask you something? Always. That night we met, did you know who I was before you asked me for that $1? Sam grinned. Son, I'd been sitting outside that theater, listening to people laugh, for 2 hours. Of course I knew who you were. So why did you only ask for $1? Because I wasn't looking for money, Katt. I was looking for someone who would see me as a person, not just a problem. The $1 was just to start the conversation. Katt laughed. So you played me. I taught you. There's a difference. As they walked back toward the learning center, Sam stopped and turned to Katt. Can I tell you what that night really taught me? What's that? Sometimes when you think you're at the end of your story, you're really just at the beginning of a new chapter. And sometimes the person who helps you turn the page is someone you never expected to meet. The Samuel Washington Education Initiative now operates in 15 cities. Over 500 young people have graduated from their programs, with 89% going on to college or trade schools. Sam, now 67, is considered one of the country's leading experts on educational recovery program. But every time someone asks him about his success, Sam tells them the same thing. The real teacher that night was a young comedian who chose to sit down on wet concrete and listen to an old man's story. That's when I learned the most important lesson of my life, that every ending can become a beginning if you're willing to let someone help you turn the page.